During World War II, survival wasn't always about firepower or battlefield tactics. For many soldiers, it came down to the small, silent habits they developed far from the noise of gunfire. In a world where a single misplaced step or a careless sound could cost lives, they learned to move, communicate, and even hide in ways that rarely made it into manuals but quietly determined who made it home. These silent defense tricks weren't glamorous, but they were often the difference between being discovered and disappearing into the landscape. Sound was the invisible enemy. Soldiers knew that the scrape of a boot or the clatter of a loose canteen could give away an entire unit's position, so they wrapped their gear in cloth, tied down anything that could rattle, and matched their movements to the rhythm of the world around them, the gusts of wind, the roll of thunder, the distant rumble of trucks. Even their weapons were muted with strips of cloth around barrels and stocks. The same philosophy still applies today. The quieter your space, the more control you have. A creaky hinge, an echo on a stair, or a tool left clattering on a shelf can give away your presence long before danger arrives. At night, shadows became tools as valuable as any weapon. Soldiers learned not to hide directly behind cover, but just beside it, where their shapes blended into the darkness instead of cutting sharp outlines against the moon. Civilians in blackout zones painted their windows or layered curtains upon curtains to make sure no faint glow betrayed life inside. Even now, the lesson survives shape light so it blinds the observer, not the observed. A yard lit strategically can expose movement near the edges, while leaving the homeowner invisible behind a curtain of darkness. Camouflage, too, was far more than fabric patterns and face paint. Soldiers adapted to every environment, slipping into workers' clothes, carrying tools instead of rifles, disguising equipment inside everyday objects. On the home front, families disguised shelters as barns, cellars, even outhouses to avoid detection from above. The best concealment was always the kind that looked ordinary. An avena, a shed, a woodpile, or a stack of garden supplies can hide tools far better than a locked metal box that practically advertises importance. Communication followed the same rule. Silence first, sound only when absolutely necessary. Units relied on hand signals, stones placed in certain formations, scratches on bark, or small marks on walls to pass messages without speaking. Families in the countryside used lanterns hung at certain heights or chalk markings on fences to signal danger or safety. Today, subtle codes between trusted neighbors, flashes of a light, a rearranged garden ornament, a discreet trail marker can keep information flowing without ever drawing attention. Deception was another quiet art. Sometimes, a soldier's best weapon was the illusion of presence or strength. Helmets set on sticks, shadows shaped to look like patrols, lights left burning in empty rooms, all were tools to mislead the enemy. Civilians learned the same tricks, leaving lamps on timers or placing boots by the door to suggest someone was home. The point wasn't to win a fight, but to make one unnecessary. A house that looks watched is far less likely to be tested. Even supplies had to disappear. Soldiers buried food, spread out gear, and moved in broken patterns to avoid leaving trails. Civilians hid valuables in false walls or sealed containers beneath the earth. The safest supplies were the ones no one knew existed. And today, the same principle still holds. Fuel under a woodpile, reserves behind a false panel, a sealed barrel buried out of sight. Concealment is security without confrontation. But perhaps the most underestimated survival tool was patience. Soldiers learned to wait for the patrol to pass, wait for the moon to darken, wait for the right moment instead of rushing into noise that could betray them. Snipers sat unmoving for hours, scouts froze in place as if they were part of the landscape. Families huddled silently in shelters during bombings, resisting the instinct to run. It was discipline disguised as stillness. And in any age, sometimes remaining unseen and unheard is the most powerful defense. These silent hacks of World War II reveal a truth often forgotten today. Survival depends less on strength and more on awareness, subtlety, and discipline. Controlling sound, shadow, movement, and presence mattered just as much as combat training. For anyone interested in preparedness or history, these quiet lessons are far from outdated. They're reminders. of how ordinary people endured extraordinary circumstances. If these insights resonate with you, be sure to subscribe to In the Beginning and share this video with those who appreciate the hidden side of history. Because preserving these lessons keeps the wisdom of the past alive and equips us for the challenges that still lie ahead.